What's up, guys, and welcome to CNA Films and Animation. I'm Corey, and today we're doing something a little bit different than what we normally do. I've decided, just as, kind of something new to do, once a month I'm going to take a look at different directors and the films that they've made, and just talk about my thoughts on the films that they've made. Not really going to be going into a biography of the director, and I'm not really going to be talking about short films, documentaries, or segmented movies, like anthology films, if it's got many directors to it. A good example would be The Twilight Zone, the movie. John Landis was director for a segment, actually 2 segments of the movie, and he did there's a couple other directors involved. I think Steven Spielberg was one. A film like that I really couldn't talk about because I'd have to focus just on one person's segment, not the movie overall. So I'm not really going to be talking about like anthology films, but mainly just going to do main picture films. And like I said, it's not really a biography or anything of the director, just taking a look at the director's films, my thoughts on the director, my thoughts on his films, and go from there. So today we're going to take a look at a director that I really wasn't aware of, but I was very aware of a lot of his films. And that director is Chuck Russell. Now, a name like Chuck Russell doesn't really ring any bells for many people. In fact, I'm sure many of you wouldn't be able to tell me who, or what films he's directed. Well, turns out he's directed 6 movies, and they're really kind of all over the place as far as popularity, quality, and genre. But I noticed a lot of his films are films that I do enjoy. There are a couple that didn't really enjoy, but that's what we're going to talk about. So we'll take a look at his 6 films. His 6 films include A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors from 1987, The Blob, the remake from the 1950s film, came out in 1988. The third film was The Mask with Jim Carrey, and that came out in 1994. Eraser with Arnold Schwarzenegger in 1996. Bless the Child with Kim Basinger from 2000, and The Scorpion King with Dwayne Johnson from 2002. So just real quickly going to talk about each of his films and share my thoughts on them. So Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, Dream Warriors, is the 3rd installment in the Nightmare on Elm Street series, and basically the 3rd film brings back many characters from the 1st film as opposed to the 2nd film that completely ignored everything that took place in the 1st film. You got Nancy who comes back, you've got her father, and of course Freddy Krueger. But really the big person who came back was Nancy, who was not in the 2nd film. And it kind of is a continuation years later of Nancy's story. She basically is a psychiatrist now, and she is taking care of these challenged youths who are in a kind of psychiatric ward. A lot of them are suicidal, and they are all experiencing the same kind of nightmares. A lot of the psychiatrists there really aren't saying much, they just think it's symptoms based off of their previous experiences, but it's really Freddy Krueger, who's the remaining link and intertwining everybody. And it delves into dreams and how you can manipulate them and do all sorts of stuff, and frankly this film is probably my favorite of the Nightmare on Elm Street sequels. It tackles just all sorts of really neat stuff. The film had some really good special effects and some very memorable deaths. There's a couple of good cameos throughout, and it's a very entertaining and just kind of fun horror film that I really remember. I saw it years ago, recently watched it, and I still really enjoyed it. It's not a perfect film. It does have its issues, it's a little slow in places, and, some of the effects are a little outdated, but, for a Nightmare on Elm Street sequel, like I said, it's probably my favorite of the sequels, next being New Nightmare. So let's take a look at his second film, The Blob. Now, The Blob is the remake of the 1950s film with Steve McQueen, and here he remakes the movie, but makes it his own. Special effects in this movie is just outstanding. Like, some of the coolest effects of the 1980s. It's, in my opinion, up to the same quality and caliber as John Carpenter's The Thing. Just a lot of really neat stuff that they did, and it's just a really entertaining film. Basically, the film follows a group of teenagers. They come across this old man who gets this blobby substance on his hand that he got from a meteor. And basically the blob thing kills everything that it touches. It's like very acidic or something, and starts to take over the entire town. And so that's kind of the basic premise, but it's still just a very entertaining and very gory, but very cool movie. I really like it. It's one of those kind of campy 80s films that I just happen to really enjoy. His third film was, like I said, The Mask, with Jim Carrey, and at the time introducing Cameron Diaz to the film world. This one is just a barrel of laughs. It's one of the funniest movies of the 90s for me. Jim Carrey is just he comes to life as the Mask, and his facial expressions, the kind of over-the-top cartoony nature of the film really kind of hits the right tones with me. It does kind of have a little darker undertone throughout the film, but originally the film was going to be kind of a dark film, but they changed the script and made it more of a comedy, and it works. Like, I legitimately really like this movie. Grew up watching it. It's one that I find myself watching kind of over and over as I grow up. Between the costuming, the music, the soundtrack, the incredible kind of dance number towards the middle end, jokes are very funny, the special effects are really good. Just a very entertaining film, and I mean it's definitely one of my favorite Jim Carrey movies, as well as one of my favorite comedies from the 90s. Just, one of those movies that I just really enjoy. Now we move on to 1996 film Eraser. This one had Arnold Schwarzenegger and Vanessa Williams, as well as James Caan. And basically the film follows Vanessa Williams. She's hired by the FBI to expose her company's dirty laundry by copying some files and giving it to the FBI. And while this is happening, the company finds out that she did this and they want her dead. Well, Arnold Schwarzenegger is a kind of a federal agent whose job is to erase your life. He makes it so that, all your records are gone, everyone thinks you're dead, and he relocates you with a different name, kind of like a different form of witness protection. But, everything about you is erased, and, they kind of put you in a new identity, which they kind of do with witness protection. But anyway, this one is a little over the top. It's probably one of the lesser remembered Schwarzenegger movies of the 90s. Like, it's not a very popular one, but it still has, people remembering it to a point. I did enjoy it. It's not the greatest action sci-fi, not really sci-fi, but it's an entertaining action thriller that definitely had some neat special effects. Some of it's outdated, especially some of the CGI. A lot of the CGI actually is not very good, but For its time, is probably decent. But anyway, Eraser is probably not the most memorable Schwarzenegger sci-fi, not sci-fi, why do I keep saying sci-fi? It's probably not the most memorable Schwarzenegger film out there, but I mean, it still has its moments, and it is a neat film. You know, it's not one that I would say rush out and see, but I mean, it's one that I'd still enjoy. Now we move on to his fifth film, Bless the Child, came out in 2000, and starred Kim Basinger. Basically, her sister shows up in the middle of the night. Kim Basinger is a nurse, and her sister shows up. She's a drug addict. Her sister's a drug addict, and she has a baby. Well, her sister leaving the baby, and leaves Kim Basinger to take care of this child. Well, they find out that the child is special in some way. They think it might be autism, but you know, they're not fully sure. I mean, she has very similar symptoms of autism, so you know, they're like, okay, we think it's autism, but something still a little weird. And Kim Basinger really wants to take care of her, and you know, she does a good job, and you know, is a good kind of mother figure to her. Well, about 6 years later, when the little girl's 6, the mother returns, but this time with a guy that is he's kind of a celebrity of sorts. You know, he's kind of like a religious figure on TV of some kind, and he is involved in this cult, unbeknownst to the characters, that basically harbors children that were born in a specific year, 1993, and has them killed. He kills these children, and they're trying to get to this little girl that's special. And they want her to, they want to use her because they feel that she has like these magical powers that deal with the devil and, you know, heavenly sorts. And from there it just kind of goes into all sorts of stuff. Like the mother kidnaps the little girl and Kim Basinger wants to get her back, and then just all sorts of stuff happens, and it's like a very it's a very cluttered film. One of the weakest points of this film is its writing. It's not a very good film. It has some fans to it, but like the dialogue and the story itself is just, there's like a whole lot going on, and none of it's really fully developed or resolved or anything. To a point it is, but it's kind of all over the place. The acting is okay, but it's not that greatest. One of the worst parts about this film, like I said, was the writing, and the special effects are pretty bad. There was a couple of neat elements to the film, particularly a dream sequence dealing with rats. Had some neat elements to it, and there is some stuff that, you know, wasn't too bad, but there's a lot of loopholes. There's a lot of stuff that just made me go, you know, kind of scratch my head and be like, really? But, you know, is it the worst thing I've ever seen? No, but it's not a film that I would recommend to anybody. Like, it just wasn't very good. So now we move on to the sixth film, and this is his final film, The Scorpion King. Now this was the film that kind of brought Dwayne Johnson's career to life. You know, he was a pro wrestler at the time, and he was in the Mummy Returns, but as a CGI'd monster thing with horrible special effects CGI. But anyway, this is a sequel, or no, this is a prequel to a sequel of a remake of an earlier film that came out 70 years before. It's big tongue twister of a way to say it, but I mean, it's what it is. Scorpion King basically follows Dwayne Johnson. He plays Matthias, and he is one of the few remaining people of his tribe or kingdom. And there's this evil army that's wanting to, completely take over his kingdom and, wipe everybody out. Well, he ends up taking the sorceress who, has these kind of abilities, if you will, and he tries to fight this army that's trying to take over his land. And he goes on like this adventure, and there's a lot of fighting and action and stuff, and it's honestly just a very forgettable film. Dwayne Johnson's not bad in the film. I mean, it's his first film, and it's the one that kind of brought him to the spotlight. The Rundown also helped in 2003, but this one was kind of the film that made people go, oh, hey, he can act too. But Michael Clarke Duncan has a small role in it. He appears periodically. He plays kind of another kingdom owner, but he's not too bad. I mean, he wasn't too bad in the film. The action in the movie is all right. It's not the greatest ever, but it's okay. Honestly, overall, it's a little bland. I was very bored with this movie. It really didn't add anything to the story as far as the Mummy series goes. Didn't really hurt anything either, but it's just like it was very bland for me. Like, I just did not enjoy it as much as I wanted to. There were some neat special effects moments in the film, but it is also very CGI heavy. There was a neat moment with some fire ants, but when they're like at a distance, far away, kind of shady CGI moments. But it's alright. He has a partner throughout the film that was very annoying. Like, I just never got behind his character, didn't really care for him, and just really didn't help the film any. Like, he was important to the plot to a point, but I just never cared about his character. If he would have died, I would have been like, cool, whatever. I just didn't care. But yeah, just kind of a bland movie, a little forgettable. But yeah. Now, since I've shared a little bit of my thoughts on each film, going to briefly just talk about my thoughts on the director overall, and kind of look at how IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes look at him, as well as my personal thoughts, what my favorite film is versus my least favorite film, stuff like that. So, Chuck Russell, for the most part, I really like this director. He definitely, especially his earlier stuff, was very fun, creative. He just created all sorts of really neat special effect heavy movies. Some of his earliest stuff, the Blob, The Mask, and Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, are just really good movies. I really enjoyed all three of them. There's some I enjoyed more than others, but yeah, like, those three films were enough to make me go, I really want to talk about him. But at the same time, he did have some forgettable, if not bad movies in his belt, but as far as I'm concerned, every director has about 2 to 3 film leeway for bad movies. He hasn't directed anything since The Scorpion King. He directed 1 episode of The Fringe, and that's about it. According to IMDb, he has a couple of upcoming projects, which I am interested in seeing, because I really want to see this guy succeed and make another good movie. But at the same time, based off this kind of trend I'm seeing, you never know. But I do like this director. I think he's one to enjoy his previous works and, you know, kind of stay away from his later works, but still, overall, not too bad. As far as my favorite film of his, I would say, and this partly is probably due to nostalgia, my favorite is probably The Mask. It's one that I can watch just over and over. I've seen it so many times, especially growing up. Between everything with, you know, Jim Carrey and just the energy of the film, I just absolutely love that film. Close second would be The Blob. I love the special effects in that film, just really good kind of practical effects that is very memorable. And then as far as my least favorite film goes, Bless the Child, easily. Hands down the worst. A distant second would be The Scorpion King, but otherwise, you know, still, really enjoy this director. Think he's definitely worth checking out if you haven't seen any of his works. So that about does it. Going to do this about once a month. Going to talk about, you know, different directors and all their films. So tell me, guys, if there's any director you want me to look at, please leave it in the comments. Share your thoughts on this video. Comment below, let me know. Love to hear your feedback. Be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. If you have any movie suggestions or TV suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and as always, I'm Corey, and I will see you guys in the next one.